everyone, Frederick here, Simple System Trading. A video today about an addition to the Autotrading bundle, and it's called the Initial Stop Bump Study. This study can be used in the Autotrader to manage your stop order, your initial stop order. And to explain this, I'll try it with a little example. Right now in the AT, you can use the AT to enter your trade, obviously, set targets, up to 3 targets if you want to, and place a stop. And for the stop management, you can have 3 steps that the AT can go through during a certain trade. As first is setting the initial stop, a second is a move to break even, and a third is trailing. So the initial stop, move to break even, and a trail can be configured in the Autotrader. But the thing with the, say we enter here, with the move to break even, it's based off a trigger, that's fine, and that's still the case. But it's only moved once. If it's valid, it will move it, and that's it. And it doesn't give you flexibility to move that stop to a certain price level and, for instance, like a moving average, and follow it. It's only a fixed move. So if you have an idea to start with an initial stop, first place a stop moving one moving average, and then use the trail stop to move a third one. That's something you cannot do yet with the move to break even being limited. And that's solved by the initial stop bump study. Because the initial stop bump study will replace your initial stop, but it will allow you to set a trigger, bump the stop based on a study value, and follow it. And then the AT can pick up with the trailing stop at the second trigger. So that's what this study solves. It solves the inflexibility of the move to break even option. The move to break even option is still there. So if you have maybe a wider stop to start with, which you want to bump to something else in a certain condition, after that you want to move to break even, and then a trail stop, that's something you could do as well. So it gives you more flexibility to manage that initial stop. That's why the study is made. Okay, now I'll quickly guide you through this little setup, this demo here. If you know my videos, you've already seen me make a signal study for the AT. Because for a long, the AT is looking for a 1 value in the signal study. And for a short, it's looking for that -1 inside the signal study. That's the way it's set up. And if you look at this demo, I just loaded the simple moving average crossover study. You set the moving average type here, and there will be subgraphs for the cross, arrow up, arrow down. We can use this to formulate a signal study that can be used by the AT. It will be 2 studies, one for long, one for short, and I use the color bar based on alert condition study. And this study is powerful. It only needs a few things and it does the job very well. I always name it. I always set a draw step to ignore because I don't want any visuals. And I set an alert condition. And when this alert condition is met, this subgraph will be filled with a value. And the output when condition is true value in this case is a 1. So it will fill this long signal study with a subgraph of 1 when this alert condition is met. And this alert condition is the moving average crossover showing a green arrow. That's it. And the short side is similar. Of course, we name it short. We set a different alert condition based off the arrow down in the moving average crossover study. Then that subgraph will be filled, but in this case, the output when true needs to be a custom value, and the custom value needs to be set to -1. This will create a -1 for the short signal, which the Autotrader will be looking for. So that's the quick setup for this little demo. So in the demo, we are gonna enter long here, just to show the long. Enter long at the bar close of this signal bar. This is what we call a signal bar because it's based off that alert condition. We're gonna enter with a market order, place a stop below 2 ticks below the signal bar, and we're gonna have it have a trigger somewhere here where the initial stop will be moved to this moving average, and we're gonna have a trigger here where the stop will start to trail. That's the demo. So for this part we will use the initial stop bump, and for this part we'll use the trailing stop functionality in the AT. So if we want to place a stop below the signal bar, let's have a look at that initial stop bump study. The initial stop bump study, it has two modes, a SG reference mode or a fixed initial stop mode. Depending on what you choose, you will have to fill out the settings below. So if you choose fixed here, you have to set the fixed settings. If you use SG ref, you gotta use the SG ref settings. Fixed initial stop, what does that mean? Well, it means that this study needs to know where your initial stop should be. And that's based off your expected fill price. Because we don't know yet where you will be filled. We only need to know where you expect to be filled to set the initial stop. So we have a valid value to set your initial stop. When the fill actually happens, that initial stop value will be recalculated again and adjusted if needed. So this is a setting that needs to be set to make sure we have a correct fixed initial stop. And this will depend on how you wish to enter. If you enter with a market order, it's easy because you're going to use the main price graph last price value. That will be representative of your expected long and short fills when you use a market order. If you use a limit order as your expected fill price, you will have to set the limit order entry price you want to have. So if you use a moving average as your limit order, you will have to set that here. If you use an offset to that moving average, you will need to construct it. The same way as you need to construct it if you're going to use the subgraph reference initial stop. Because in our case, we're going to use the low of the signal bar, right? And the low of the signal bar is, if you look at when we enter on the next bar open, so the close of the signal bar, at bar close. We're going to need the price value of the low of the previous bar. So we need to construct that price value. And there's this very powerful study, it will be your friend, is the spreadsheet formula study. This is fairly easy to make a price subgraph for using that as a reference. and it can input a very powerful formula. There is all kinds of spreadsheet formulas possible um, to create that price value for you. So in this case, it's very simple because we want to look at the low of the previous bar. That will be the reference price we need for the initial stop. And in this case, it's a long, so we want to have an offset of 2 ticks. That's the way it's done. So we have the low of the previous bar minus the 2 ticks will be the price value, and that's what we're gonna name it, initial, the long initial stop. Let's color it blue. Let's use a dash and make it a bit more visible. So that little trick will make sure that we have a price value to attach the stop order to. Go back to the initial stop bump study. We set the initial stop reference for the long right here to the initial long stop subgraph. That's all it needs. Do we want to follow that initial stop? It's possible. In this case, we decided to leave it there, and we use an initial move trigger to bump that stop to a price reference. That's what we want to use. So it's going to have a look here. What we did, we're going to enter here. We want to, in the demo, keep the stop right there, and we don't get stopped out, hopefully. And then at the bump level will be here, and the second trigger move will be here for the trail stop, and this will be done for the initial stop move. So this will be the bump trigger, this move right there. And already calculated that's 29 ticks. So we're gonna keep the stop here. It's just gonna be sufficient. We're gonna keep that initial stop here until we have 29 ticks of movement from the average fill price. Then it's gonna follow this subgraph here, and then we're gonna move another few points and move the trail stop there. So the initial stop can be configured now with a move trigger of 29 ticks, and a stop value, the bump value, will be a reference of that purple line. That's the average 2 subgraph of the moving average crossover. And we're going to follow that subgraph. So the initial stop bump study has been set now. We can use it in the AT. For our use case, it's fine. You have other trigger options, so if you want to bump it based on number of bars, time, or a certain trigger based on another color bar based on alert condition, you can do that too. So you are very flexible in the trigger options. And the stop value, if you want to bump that value, it can be based on the study value, but it can also be fixed. But fixed we kind of have already in the move to break even, but I still put it in here if you want to use the move to break even as a separate step. So what's next? Next is the Autotrader. So we have the defaults here, which we're going to walk through. In this case, we don't want to have the shorts. We're just going to take the longs here. I will have a stop order and a target order. Quantity will be 1, max position size will be 1. We need to reference that long signal here. If you're going to use a short, you would need to reference the short as well. We're going to enter at the bar close. If you have another idea, you can do that too. And we're going to enter with a market order. If you use market order, then all the order stuff doesn't need to be filled out. So that's all easy. We have a normal exit. Just want to have that trade run. And we have a first target. That first target needs to be quite some points away. Give it some space here. I'm going to put it 80 ticks into the future. No second, no third target. Initial stop. We need the initial stop to be a study subgraph value. And here's where we're going to reference the initial stop study SG value long. We're going to do the initial stop bump study long. And the other one will be the initial stop bump study short if you're going to use shorts, right? So now the initial stop of the AT is pointing towards the stop bump study. In this case, we will not use the move to break even. Still there, still possible, but we will use the trailing stop. The trailing stop, we're going to want to use the trail the study SG stop. So we're going to use that one. We will need to have a trigger defined, and you have triggers here as well. We're going to use a movement trigger based on number of ticks. I will do the measurement, just wait a bit, and then we need, because we set the trailing SG stop here, we need to set that long to that moving average number 1, the green one, and that will be followed. All right, that's all we need to set, and we need to set the correct fixed movement. So let's OK this all, and let's measure that move here. We have something like a fill here and something here, so that's 14.25 points. Has 57 ticks here. So let's enter that in the Autotrader as our trailing movement trigger in ticks. 57. So right now we have the AT all set. Double check the settings one more time, and it's I think I forgot one thing. It's the initial stop here. It needs to follow the SG when it changes. So we will have a continuous follow of the initial stop value. And that should do it to get ready for the demo. So let's demo this thing. Let's start with a few checks when you start to demo or live trade your setting. Let's speed it down a little bit. Let's click single chart, accurate trading system replay. What you want to do is always check if your trade enabled global is set and enabled chart is set correctly. You want to turn on the Autotrader, and then you can run it. So right here we're looking for that signal to happen where we will enter at market. We have one target and one stop. Right there we enter that trade. As you can see, the target is placed way up there and the stop is placed as we want it to be, 2 ticks below the previous, well, below the signal bar. And we enter that market right there. Right now we wait for that initial stop bump, and that's and then 29 ticks is there. We're gonna place a little line so we can keep tabs on it. And we have 59, was it? Yeah, 59. 59 ticks for the second trigger to. All right, let's keep on playing this. Speed it up a little bit. and see what happens. So expect it to open up after the close here. There we go. We dip down, we move there, and you see that stop is right now moved to that moving average, which it will follow. And now we wait for that second step. That's when this price is hit, and then we're gonna follow the green one. That's how we wanted it to be. So there we go. Now we follow the green one. Boom, we're out. So that's the little demo. See the trade fills here, or the trade fills. Right there, we entered, we moved, stopped, we got stopped out right there. And I'm gonna use this. You can hide this spreadsheet study, so you don't have to really show it. So this is the demo. Initial stop bump explained. Gives you a lot of flexibility. So you can move from initial stop to even move to break even to trailing stop with more flexibility than before. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, just hit me up. If you like it, tell all your trading friends, your trading buddies in your trading room. And yeah, let me know if you want me to cover some other use case. I'm happy to do it. Thank you. Bye-bye.